Hi, everyone. Welcome to the YouTube stage here at Adweek. How's everyone feeling post-lunch? Yeah? Lots of energy. Feeling good? Great. So thanks for joining us today. In a couple of seconds, I'm just going to hand you over to Ash from Brave, who's going to talk to all of us about how we can learn a little bit from Walter White, one of my favorite box set characters, to break bad. So enjoy.
Good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I'm Ash Bendelow, the Managing Director of Brave, and I'd like to talk to you today about brands breaking bad. Firstly, what do I mean by brands breaking bad? Well, let me summarize the pitch of a television show that hopefully most of you will be familiar with. The story I want to talk you through today and take you through today isn't just the story of one man's transformation, but the catalyst for transformation of an industry. A story that arguably pioneered and redefined television for the smart generation that's had so many positive repercussions that we could all learn from. The pitch goes something like this. Chemistry teacher dying of cancer turns to cooking meth to financially provide for his pregnant wife and disabled son post-death. Now, on the face of it, with that elevator pitch, it's not the most attractive proposition for any commissioning editor or television exec, which is why the concept was originally rejected by 4 of the big US networks, including Showtime, FX, TNT, and perhaps most surprisingly, HBO. This concept has led to what has become one of the most notorious, groundbreaking, and innovative dramas ever to grace our screens, Breaking Bad. The story follows the transformation of one Walter White, a mild-mannered chemistry teacher living in the suburbs of Albuquerque, New Mexico. He can barely make ends meet on his meager salary, a situation that's unlikely to improve once his pregnant wife gives birth and whilst his disabled son battles cerebral palsy. But the situation does get worse for Walter as he is diagnosed with cancer. Realising that this illness will probably ruin his family financially, Walter makes a desperate bid to earn as much money as he possibly can as his life ebbs away by converting an old RV recreation vehicle into a meth lab on wheels. So, with random violence, overdoses, mutilated bodies, summary executions, acid baths and characters left with only half a face, you take Mr. Chips and you turn him into Scarface, was creator Vince Gilligan's summation of the character transformation. AMC, the network that finally commissioned Breaking Bad, were only said to have taken a chance on the show as they were cash rich after Mad Men. The success of hard-drinking, hard-smoking, misogynistic Madison Avenue ad execs allowed the network to take a risk on an idea that many thought was doomed for failure. Breaking Bad premiered on the US cable network AMC on January the 20th, 2008. AMC in the US is one of the bigger networks. It reaches over 94 million homes. However, that first episode, that first airing, attracted a meager 994,000 viewers. And that was despite aggressive promotion off the back of Mad Men. By the time Breaking Bad had reached its finale, 10.4 million evangelical viewers tuned in to watch Walter's fate. The final episode became the 3rd highest rated in US cable history, only being beaten by the last episode of The Sopranos and the conclusion of Sex and the City. Let me explain just how crazy this is. For a program that was almost cancelled after 2 seasons. The 4th season, the penultimate season, the finale of the penultimate season, had only delivered 1.9 million viewers. And the programme across its history had only surpassed the 2 million barrier twice. But just 2 years later, as the final season was divided into 2, Breaking Bad viewership had taken off an astounding 500%. Nothing, and I mean nothing, in television had seen that quantum leap, with the drama cementing its status as a game changer for the underdog of TV shows. Of course, what we've learned is this transformation in viewing habits was primarily led by the audience's exposure to Breaking Bad via Netflix. And in fact, during the Golden Globes, Gilligan publicly thanked Netflix for the overall success of the show. The way people accessed the programme put Netflix on the global map, breaking down through viewing norms. In territories where fans couldn't access the show through more traditional methods, such as cable, satellite, or terrestrial, they could access the show, and more importantly, every single previous episode of the show through online streaming. Breaking Bad was breaking barriers, changing behaviours, and reimagining the TV model. This presentation of brands Breaking Bad was inspired by brands that take risks in their creative and commercial decision-making, and those that don't. Risks that Breaking Bad as a series took. The best client and agency individuals share the same frustrations much of the time. A desire and an intent to change, to experiment, to exponentially grow against a cultural, political, and sometimes commercial reality of the stakes being just that little too high. So inevitably, things stay as they are. And it was Einstein that said, you know, it's the first stage of insanity, repeating an exercise over and over and over again and expecting the results to change and the outcomes to change. And this is too often becoming a reality of our industry. And this is what we are faced with. I love this quote from Upton Sinclair. It's difficult to get a man to understand something when his salary depends on him not understanding it. And again, it is a reality of business and the paralysis of silo mentality and cross-functional teams working in organisations that are not adapting, that are not building for purpose in the rapid changing commercial and progressive landscape we work in. For me, we're on a tide of a perfect storm where fundamentals are converging that are driving change for CMOs to have more influence and impact at the top table, in the boardroom. These things like data, like the language that we're using, the creativity, the commerciality that we now understand, and the real-time nature of everything. As guardians of brands, I would say that we all need to get a little more Breaking Bad. Breaking the rules, rewriting the rules, challenging the accepted and the acknowledged whys, innovating and transforming the way we work. If we take, this is really interesting, if we take the S&P index, the Standard & Poor's Index 500, we see that life expectancies of companies to remain on that index has dramatically fallen from 75 years to just over 5 years. Constant innovation isn't a strategic option anymore, it's an absolute mandate. And this is where so many parallels can be drawn between what we see with brands and businesses and the intricate premise, plots and subplots that we all experienced within Breaking Bad. Let me take you through a few themes that I hope you'll find interesting. The first one, chemistry is the study of growth, decay and transformation. So many businesses and brands follow that cycle. Companies do great jobs innovating, creating value, becoming trailblazers. They look to monopolise their market. And then something happens. The quality becomes less of an issue. The company places greater value on the finance directors, the accountants, the salespeople to create that value. And the company's DNA moves from product engineers being at the centre of its universe to demotivating and devaluing the work of these creators. The business loses this clarity of focus on making great products that, more importantly, consumers want. Excuse me. Desperation is often an agent of change and a change of attitude towards risk. It wasn't until Walter was diagnosed with cancer that he tried to then understand his real potential, and perhaps to the extreme in terms of his transformation. But it's too often, again, that it's only when a company has accepted that it's unlikely to survive in its current guise does it acknowledge that transformation is needed. Complacency stops, inconvenient truths are realised, and more often than not, a company regresses back to the principles that made it a success in the first instance. And ironically, if it's not too late by that point, it makes the company progressive once again. People that understand the product should always be the ones that run the company, motivated to create game-changing products. Making money and corporate survival now depend not merely on satisfying customers, but by delighting them. To prosper, firms must have creators who are continuously innovating and delivering a steady supply of new value to customers and delivering it sooner. The new bottom line of business, the age in which we operate, is the customer delighted? It is a fundamental shift from outputs to outcomes. And that is why it's more difficult, much more difficult, to add value than it is to cut costs. And that is why the tyranny of short-term gains is always at odds with the motivations of the creators. The businesses that win are the ones that have the steadfast belief in constantly finding new ways to delight their customers. Now let's do some application from some of those themes. Ford. Now you may see Ford as one of the largest car manufacturers and as a success today, but this hasn't always been the case. And arguably, it's had one of its most turbulent times over the last 15 years in its entire rich history. When Alan Mulally was named president and CEO of Ford in September 2006, the company was an absolute benchmark for uninventive products. He took his prior skills from his former employer, Boeing, the plane manufacturer, where he was the one that introduced the first all-digital flight deck in a commercial airliner, and set about breaking bad at Ford, transforming the company along the way. Mulally used his entire 8 years in charge to reverse a calamitous $12.7 billion loss and turn it to profit. Mulally introduced what would become a template for transforming ailing companies, the Way Forward program. Now, Mullally's cost-cutting initiatives may have been controversial, but they supercharged Ford, leading to the first profitable quarter in just 2 years of him being in charge. As he moved to stabilise the company, the boss took a $23 billion loan. He restructured operations. He sold off Land Rover and Jaguar, Volvo and Aston Martin, and he launched an unheard-of One Ford program to rally disillusioned and disappointed employees and put product back at the heart of Ford's purpose. Mulally never said his bold steps wouldn't be painful, and Ford has shed over 50,000 jobs since he took over in 2006, shutting down 17 plants along the way. But like Walter White, he had to make the best of what was a terminal diagnosis. Ford remains one of the only US car manufacturers not to have been bailed out by the US government. And like our Breaking Bad anti-hero, he refused to just roll over and die. However, arguably the biggest and bravest decision to break bad undoubtedly lies with the then outgoing CEO, Mulally, and the new incoming one, Mark Fields, with a complete reimagining of a product that had been Ford's crown jewels, profit, cash cow and profit machine for over 50 years. And this is despite the fact that this product is only really sold in North America, the monster truck that is the F-150. The combination of simple construction, minimal changes, and long production runs created the industry's fattest profits with this product. Indeed, if the F-150 was a business in its own right, it would make it into the Fortune 100. But could it last? And that's where the bold decision was made in 2009 to gamble in a move away from steel to a new lightweight aluminium body. This slashed the weight of the vehicle by 1/3 of a ton and made groundbreaking innovations in handling and fuel efficiency. The change affected each and every single area of the production process, from supply to build to repair of the new aluminium body. No other brand in any other category had made that jump from steel to aluminium. And we await the results of whether it was the right move, because the fruits of that project have only literally just gone on sale Q4 in America. And brands breaking bad can arguably go further in the car industry. Leading electric car manufacturer Tesla made the bold decision to go open source earlier this year, with its founder Elon Musk opening up the company's patent files for what he called good faith use from outside companies. For a manufacturer, and a fledgling manufacturer in automotive terms, to open up its secrets is unheard of in such a competitive industrial landscape. But Tesla decided to do it, breaking bad and looking at the bigger picture of technological advancement, along with his vision of changing the look of automotive utopia, with partnering with partners like Panasonic to build multi-billion-dollar factories for power storage to realize his eco-dream. And in fact, Musk is the classic example of a boss that has decided to follow the Breaking Bad path, ignoring the naysayers in pursuit of a specific goal. In November last year, he announced a delay to the much anticipated Model Tesla X. The reason for that delay was actually very simple. He didn't have 100% confidence in the product. He thought it could be better. He wanted to allow more time for testing. And it might be difficult for any of us sat in this room today to think of a last encounter, episode, experience where we've gone to a colleague or a client and we've said, not because we've mismanaged process or because we've been lazy, but because we don't 100% believe in what we're saying. Smaller challenger businesses should also be able to make use of the Breaking Bad blueprint as much as the corporate giants. If Walter and Jesse were to make the narcotic equivalent of homebrew, then they would be Brewdog. The startup was founded in Scotland in 2007 by James Watt and Martin Dickey as a craft brewer. It produces bottled and canned beers such as ale, stout, IPA, and lager. And breaking the brewing mould has always been part of the Brewdog mantra. In 2009, Brewdog launched a beer called the Tactical Nuclear Penguin with 32% proof that they claimed was the strongest beer ever made. And then they challenged that. They challenged themselves just a year later in 2010 when Brewdog announced Sink the Bismarck, which was apparently 41% proof. But it's the brewers' disruption tactics that have really taken it into the role of innovator, challenging the norm and asking the whys of the industry and breaking new ground. In 2013, the brewer achieved maximum publicity, taking on the drinks regulator, the Portman Group, over comments made regarding its beer brand Speedball. The company also had to apologise for not giving a shit about the statements that the drinks regulator had made over its Pale Ale Dead Pony Club, which the Portman Group said had broken alcohol marketing rules with regards to antisocial behaviour and rapid drinking. The regulator stepped in and instructed licensees and retailers to not stock Dead Pony Club in its current packaging. And then July of the same year, not satisfied with pissing them off that much, they went in again. And they moved further into disruption modes, hitting out against a reprimand, this time by the ASA, the Advertising Standards Authority, saying that they will continue to claim on their website things and words that were deemed too offensive by the regulator. And I can't see why, to be honest. But the controversial brewer's website stated, "Brewdog is a post-punk apocalyptic mofo of a craft brewery. Say goodbye to the corporate beer whores, crazy for power and world domination. Ride toward anarchy and caramel craziness. Let the sharp, bitter finish rip you straight to the tits. Save up for a Luger and drill the bastards." Now, like them or loathe them, they are the anti-establishment. They are the anti-category, and they're winning. Or there are brands that, despite taking the corporate dollar, the corporate money, like to plough their own furrow, such as Mexican fast food chain Chipotle. In July 1993, a 28-year-old chef, Steve Ells, opened an 850-square-foot taqueria in Denver. The restaurant became so successful so quickly that it soon led to spin-off restaurants, which then led to further expansion that then required a backer. In this case, it was McDonald's, which originally took a minority stake in the business that then grew to, at one point, 90% share of the business. Now, you may think that that would spell the end of Chipotle in terms of its values and what it stood for as it's swallowed up by the corporate giant. And it wasn't such a messy divorce, but more of a conscious uncoupling, as Ells decided to shift Chipotle's products and purchasing practices in the direction of sustainability and organic. The chain started to buy all of its organic pork, from Nimran Ranch farms and groups that produced organic meat. They soon began to seek out beef and chicken suppliers that were raised without hormones and antibiotics. Chipotle became the first major restaurant chain in the US to reveal which of their products contained GMO ingredients, mostly being soybean oil, cornstarch, and corn flour. And this cultural stance could have led and could have been the final straw. And in 2006, McDonald's decided to get rid of its interests in Chipotle in an IPO, an initial public offering. Ells then stepped in and instructed a buyback policy that would see the chain becoming independent once again. Chipotle had broken bad because it had stuck with its core principles and commitment to products and its values, much like Walter White with his products, although you could say he's a little bit more dubious. It now has 1,600 locations and employs 45,000 people. So for McDonald's, perhaps it was the one that unfortunately got away. To use a Seth MacFarlane quote, and hopefully some of you will know who Seth MacFarlane is, in an age where there seems to be journalistic merit, with BuzzFeed allowing me to understand which Disney princess I'm most like, Vice has come calling as the changing of the guard in how the news is to be reported. Vice is the epitome of the libertarian agenda, and yet recently gained unparalleled access to the inner workings of what was the fledgling Islamic State, an achievement that I'm sure would have had the news editors and the bureau chiefs at Al Jazeera and Sky News grinding their teeth with jealousy. And perhaps this success is due to the unconventional ambitions of Shane Smith, the CEO and co-founder. In a recent interview with Forbes, he said, "I don't give a shit about money. I have more money than I can ever spend. My interest is in making the cultural impact." And a cultural impact is exactly what, and undeniably, what he's making. In just 20 years, Vice has gone from Montreal Youth Mag to a multimedia empire, and its rate of growth seems to be accelerating instead of slowing. In 2013, Fox bought a 5% stake in the business, which valued the company for $70 million, which valued the company at $1.4 billion. Now Shane Smith is finalising details of a deal with A&E, valuing with a $250 million deal with A&E, which values Vice as a $2.5 billion media network. That is big news. And despite accusations of gonzo journalism and derision from the mainstream media, Vice has built this empire by finding and telling compelling news stories, seemingly without the overt agendas of the mainstream agencies. A great example of this is the human story of some Iraqi kids that were trying to rehearse their Slipknot-style music as they were literally dodging Scud missiles. The story appealed to the global youth that was disaffected with world news and politics. It engaged them while making the traditional news agencies look ridiculous, stating that this particular conflict was over from the comfort of their Green Zone press camps. Shane maintains, and Smith maintains, that Vice tells the story of the people rather than the journalist. And this approach to a new wave of digital journalism is not just category defying, it is revolutionary. Every story is told as a human interest story. And this demonstrably has been more effective at reaching a traditionally unengaged millennial audience in world news and current affairs. The numbers don't lie. Vice Media now operates a global network of online news channels covering a multitude of different verticals, including news, sports, technology and music. And it has offices in 36 countries and growing. This unconventional outsider is now pushing into the traditional mainstream media also, with a news magazine show that is produced in partnership with HBO. And they're also currently exploring other TV channel opportunities and possibilities with A&E. The outsider is becoming the institution. But what's really incredibly important, it is on their terms. They are continuously breaking bad. And to go, as Shane Smith has just recently conducted an interview with President Obama, to go from one bearded man interviewing the president to another. In 2013, Obama introduced his healthcare reform strategy, the Affordable Care Act. It was an important piece of legislation that was part of Obama's legacy. It attempted to make sure that less fortunate US citizens, including the young, were protected with free or heavily subsidized healthcare. The project was launched, but it was beset by problems from the outset, and it immediately faced protests from other parties and the public. Simply put, it was in danger of cancellation. So how can you change a potential political failure into a great example of breaking bad behaviour? Well, if you're trying to connect and engage the youth, then you use and transfer the power to the youth. And a youth supporter of Obama stepped in to save the day. The intern suggested that the President of the United States, don't worry doing a public service address, you need to appear on an interview on Funny or Die. Now, for those of you that don't know Funny or Die, it is a website that has been set up by comedian Will Ferrell and was a space for risque comedy, but President Obama still appeared on Between Two Ferns, the name of the show, starring Zach Galifianakis of Hangover fame, a parody show that was known for its ridicule of its celebrity subjects. And on the face of it, this could have been a truly terrible idea that could have wildly backfired. But what was the alternative? Failure of the project? The president talked about his healthcare plan and its importance to the US people, especially the young. While Galifianakis was taking pot shots at him, the slot had now registered over 10 million views on YouTube, and it immediately went viral. The president had taken a risk with his professional image, and it ended up with a greater understanding of his healthcare plans by the wider US public, especially the young. And the US healthcare reforms is only one example of innovative breaking bad behaviour and thinking that has been used as a force for good. What we've experienced in the seminar today are admittedly more extreme but inspirational examples, much of what could be argued outside the realms of
of possibility for how we as individuals can create and drive change to the same extent within our own businesses. However, please consider this. It wasn't Ford that went from a 19.7 billion market cap in 2005 to what it currently is at 64.6 billion. It was Alan Mulally and Mark Field making transformational decisions, putting product innovation back at the heart of the Ford business. It wasn't Tesla that went from a $2.2 billion market cap to a $24.6 billion business. It was Elon Musk and his vision for automotive utopia. It wasn't Brewdog. It was Martin Dickey and James Watt and them questioning the acknowledged whys and being unconventional within their category. And it wasn't Chipotle. It was Steve Ells and his view on sustainability and transparency that commercially transformed that business. All of these people share unifying qualities that I do think we can all actively embrace in our own personal brands. They own their own purpose and vision with unwavering simplicity and frightening clarity. This makes it much, much easier to make decisions that an outsider may deem brave. They make the brave feel safe. And when they do that, they hold these decisions up against their own personal benchmarks. And guess what? They're all winning. So, whether it be raising the creative bar, clients should be guided by their agencies to continue to take risks to break bad. We need our CMOs being a little more Walter White, using the marketing function to constantly delight customers and add value to products and services and fight for what's right for the future of their business using any means necessary. We need these people putting their jobs on the line, but it's people that create the change with unwavering clarity and conviction in their purpose. We need to collectively lobby to change from a creative culture of mediocrity, a culture where creativity is only viewed in the confines of words and pictures, by making these rainmakers the norms of the industry rather than the exception. We need to place greater value on creating greater value, whilst also recognising institutional indoctrination of just don't fuck it up, rather than creating an entrepreneurial culture where we can ask, like Google X does, why can't it be 10 times better rather than 10% better? Motivational speaker Robert H. Schuller once said, "What would you do if you knew for sure that you wouldn't fail?" And I put it to all of you that the fact that you may fail is the actual reason that you will succeed. Thanks for listening. But before I go, I'd like to share one more interesting aside. And please do take this with the tongue-in-cheek intention with which it is meant. As a brand, if all else fails, perhaps there is an opportunity to manufacture Class A drugs on the side. Now, I'm sure every single person in this room knows what that is. That is the chemical structure of cocaine. What if I told you that Coca-Cola remains the only corporation allowed to legally import coca leaves that are used to manufacture medical-grade cocaine in the United States today? The coca leaves are imported into a coca processing lab called the Stepan Company. Google it. As recently as 2011, an estimated 100 metric tons of cocoa leaves are imported to the Stepan Company as part of special permission from the US DEA office. Cocaine is, of course, no longer nowhere near Coca-Cola and modern Coca-Cola. But it turns out that this cocaine is then sold on to St. Louis company called Mallinckrodt Incorporated. The official explanation for this is that it's for medicinal use. So, who are we to question that? But it looks like even worldwide corporations may be closer to Breaking Bad than we think. Thanks, everyone.
Say, little monster.